Welcome to Lesson 22, The Laws of Muktzah, Part 2. In Part 1, we defined the term Muktzah as those things that the rabbis deemed to be set aside and prohibited to be metaltel, to handle, to carry on Shabbos. We said that there are many different categories of Muktzah, and each category has its own halachos. Today we will begin to categorize Muktzah and to apply the different halachas that apply to each category. But before we do that, we have to define one term that's critical for the understanding of the terms of Muktzah, and that is keli. Keli, a vessel, an object of use. An object of use, something that has a primary function. It could be called a kli shemalachta leheter, something whose primary function is permissible on Shabbos. Kli shemalachta leisser, a keli, a vessel, an object of use, shemalachta leisser, whose primary function is something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. And then there's something that's not even a keli at all, something that isn't a functional thing at all. I'd like to introduce you to Dovi on the table over here. Dovi is a toy bear, and a stuffed bear with his toy cell phone that's in his hand. Dovi has a function. It's a toy. Children play with him. It's malachta leheter. They're allowed to play with him on Shabbos. Hence, kli shemalachta leheter. Right next to him on the table is a phone. A phone is a kli shemalachta leisser. It's an object of use. It's functional, but its main function is something you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. You're not allowed to receive and make phone calls on Shabbos or talk on the phone. Next to that on the table is a broken cell phone. A few hours before Shabbos, I was giving one of my children a bath, and the cell phone fell in the bath. It's not functional anymore. It's headed either to the garbage or to the recycle bin. It's not going to be used. It doesn't have any function. It's a more severe level of muktzah. So let us, before we define say the halachas of these three categories, we said the laws of muktzah were instituted by the rabbis to protect the integrity of Shabbos, to help create the atmosphere of Shabbos. The rabbis recognized that those things that you have on the table all the time, the flatware, the cutlery, the glasses, the food and the drink, are those things that they can't restrict. And those things are completely outside of the discussion of muktzah. You don't have to think twice before you pick up your forks, your knife at the table. Is there a reason why you're picking it up or not? You're just handling it because it's there, whatever it is, you're nervous, that's no concern. That's not within this discussion of muktzah at all. But the three categories that we mentioned before, those have each specific halachas that relate to them. The least strict of all of them is the kli shemalachta leheter. Dovi is a toy. Children can play with the toys on Shabbos. You don't have to think too much. We generally consider that not muktzah at all. But the Shulchan Aruch says, the rabbis say, to handle it for no reason at all is something that you shouldn't do. So if it's in a place where it's going to get ruined, the room is messy and you want to clean up the toys, you don't have to think twice about it. It's a kli shemalachta leheter. It has a function. That's not something that you have to think about. It's not at all restricted. But the next category, the cell phone, the phone is a kli shemalachta leisser. It's functional. It's a keli, but you're not allowed to receive and make phone calls on Shabbos. So kli shemalachta leisser, you're not supposed to handle it. Actually, if it's in the sun and the sun's beating down on it, you think it's not good for it, you're not allowed to handle it on Shabbos and move it out of the sun. Mechama l'tzeil, to take it from the sun to the shade, kli shemalachta leisser, you shouldn't do. However, that being said, there are two leniencies that the rabbis state that apply to a kli shemalachta leheter. The cell phone is on the table. The phone is on the table, and I'm about to eat my Shabbos meal on the table. I need its place. This is where I put the food down. You're allowed to pick it up and put it away. You can't put it back on the base because that would be recharging it. You can't recharge the phone on Shabbos. You're allowed to take it off the table, even though you're handling something that's muktzah. But since you need its place, you're allowed to take it and put it away. Similarly, if you have a hammer is a kli shemalachta leisser. The main function of a hammer is to for construction, for building, to take something apart. You're not allowed to do those on Shabbos. If before Shabbos you were fixing something in the house and you left it on the table, you came home, the hammer is right where I want to sit, right at the table. You want to pick up the hammer and put it away, you need its place. The second heter is you need tzarech gufay. Something that's muktzah, its primary function is prohibited, but there's a use that's permissible on Shabbos, and you need it for that use. You need the hammer to crack open a coconut. The hammer is muktzah for building. The hammer is muktzah to handle for anything else, but to open up a coconut, to crack open a coconut, you'd be allowed to. Another example, let's say you served cholent at the meal, and you want to put the cholent away. You don't want to put it in the refrigerator open. You want to put it in a closed container. You don't have any containers. You have a pot. What's the primary function of a pot? For cooking. An empty pot is muktzah to kli shemalachta l'isser. The main thing you do with this is cook. When there's food in the pot is not considered muktzah, but an empty pot is muktzah. Is there any way I could take the empty pot and transfer the cholent to it? Yes. To kli shemalachta l'isser, it's an object of use, it's a vessel, it's a keli, primarily used for something that's prohibited, so I'm allowed to use it l'tzarech gufay. So I'm allowed to take the cholent, put it in the pot, cover the pot, and put it away in the kitchen. That's carrying something that's muktzah, kli shemalachta l'isser. It's keli that's main function is prohibited. I'm using it for itself, and that is for something that's permissible. That's okay. Come to the third category, the broken cell phone. Broken cell phone has no function at all. Doesn't serve any function. That's called muktzah machmas gufay. It's inherently muktzah. I come home and my kids were playing with the cell phone, and the one that I'm going to throw away later, it's not a toy. If I would designate the cell phone for my children to play with, then it would be like Dovey the bear. It would be a kli shemalachta l'heter. It would have a function that something is permissible. But I plan on throwing this in the garbage. I have enough toys to play with. Just having more mess in the table in the house, I want to throw it away. Someone left it on the table before Shabbos when I come home. Can I pick it up? I need its place, but it's not a keli. It's not a functioning thing. That's why in the previous video, when I wanted to clear off the table, while I'm allowed to pick up this phone and put away because this is functional, this one I did tiltal begufay. I did tiltal not with my hand, I didn't pick it up. I did tiltal beguf. So just to a lot of details, just to review briefly, we said it's something that is beyond the discussion of, completely outside of the discussion of muktzah, flatware, your glasses, your food, and your drink, that you don't have to think twice about. Kli shemalachta l'heter, something that its function is permissible, very little to think about. Just don't handle it for no purpose at all, but otherwise you don't have any restrictions. The functioning phone, kli shemalachta l'isser, the pot, kli shemalachta l'isser, two scenarios that you're allowed to handle those. If you need its place, or you need to use it for a permissible use. Something that is not functional, a cell phone that is not functioning, it's muktzah machmas gufay. Those things should not be handled at all. Tiltal beguf, you could knock it off the table, and that would be okay. Thank you.